Just when you thought it was safe to go into the Arctic. Welcome to I Hope You Suffer.
Has it ever been safe to go into the Arctic?
I don't think so. This is episode 19 of I Hope You Suffer. My name is Nathan.
I'm Kit.
And our special guest this week from the Are You Afraid of the Bark podcast is Michelle Anne Olsen.
Hi there.
And we watched Ice Sharks from 2016, a very terrible sci-fi movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it does not live up to the name at all. These sharks were not made of ice. It is horse shit, and I'm very upset about it.
I didn't even think of that. That's true.
I didn't either. That would have been much better.
that would have been a much better movie.
These were just like cold sharks.
They weren't even necessarily like they were like a real shark that just happened to be frozen into the ice at some point.
Yeah, they're based on a real species of shark, the Greenland shark, but and then they're affectionately called like greenies, I think, in the movie.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna throw it out there that they don't really act like that.
I'll say I went and got on Wikipedia and was like, I'm pretty sure this isn't at all how these sharks are. I was like, no, this is all lies.
You mean they're not
made of ice? This isn't how the real sharks act?
They're not the worst hunters on the planet since they are constantly swimming straight by people just floating in the water.
Man, that first attack, they did a piss poor job.
The sharks did a piss poor job?
Yes. The guy winds up, I don't know how he wound up like 40 feet away from the land, and the sharks are just kind of like swimming past him, and he'd accidentally kick one in the head.
I
just like, alright, we'll hang back for a minute.
The scene... Well, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, did you notice how the sharks in the movie, they have these milky white eyes? That's because Greenland sharks are actually mostly blind. They get this parasite, almost 100% of them, that makes them blind. So I think the movie was trying to suggest that if they like stayed still, kind of a la Jurassic Park, that maybe the sharks wouldn't notice them. Because at one point this woman was trapped in a room, a small room, with the shark. And the shark was just missing her over and over and over again. And I think the movie was trying to suggest that they were blind and couldn't see her or something.
This is going to be the only episode where we get any sort of, like, science correct. Because, like, that scene happened, and I was like, there is no way these sharks don't know this person's right there. This room is, like, 5 feet wide.
Yeah, and no, or either it seemed that it didn't even know she was in the room with it, or it was just really, like, missing her by these wide berths. It was pretty ridiculous. I don't know I forget if she ended up surviving, but she survived for longer than she should have, that's for sure.
I don't think so. Pretty much everybody except for, like, the two main people, like the married couple, die, so... Alright, so... I will say Michelle is on this episode because she knows a lot about the aquatic life. And I told her the next time we did a shark episode that we would have her on to tell us about how these dumb sharks in these movies are supposed to be acting.
I'm sorry we couldn't choose a better movie for you.
It was the only one that was available in Canada on Amazon Prime, probably because it has the word ice in the title. And they were like, you know what, Canadians like that. So you gave me this whole list of sort of D-grade shark movies that sounded incredible. And this is the only one that was available in Canada.
I need Canada to figure out how to get House Shark.
Yes!
I I watched the trailer for House Sharks a while ago, and it looked so bad. I can't wait to actually watch it at some point.
Can you quickly, what's the premise? Are they in your house?
Yeah, it's basically just sharks get stuck in a house with somebody. It's real dumb.
That sounds amazing.
There's also, I know Kit's seen it. I'm assuming he's seen both of them, and I watched about the first 15 minutes of it, and I had to, stop it because I was like, I want to watch this for the podcast at some point. But Ghost Sharks 2 Urban Jaws.
A perfect film.
Just from start to finish.
Absolute masterpiece.
The one scene I saw was this lady walking down her apartment hallway, and there's a puddle with a wet floor sign, and a ghost shark comes out of it and eats her. And I was like, yep, this looks amazing.
That sounds like I might never be able to. Where are you safe from ghost sharks? Nowhere.
No.
So you just can't. It would change my life in a really negative way.
It would do to you what Jaws did to me, seeing it at 6.
Exactly, but in my hallway.
Yeah. Never be able to shower again. Nowhere, no water ever.
In the first one, there's a really fantastic scene where it's the bad guy that. I don't know what he was trying to do with the ghost shark, but he's explaining his diabolical plot, and he's laughing, and he takes a sip of water, and since he took a sip of water, the shark pops out of him, just tears through him to try and attack the other people in the room.
What?
It's brilliant.
That sounds amazing. So this movie was directed... written by, he was an actor in it, and did visual effects by Emil Edwin Smith.
Wow, well, hats off to that guy. It was all terrible, but at least he managed to do it all, I guess.
That's how you know it's a good movie, when one guy has done everything.
I think he's one of the go-to directors for the sci-fi movies, because he did Mega Shark versus Mecha Shark. And there was also a guy named Paul Bales who was one of the co-producers that when I looked up his credits, it was just every sci-fi movie ever made. Every poster that came up was just every Sharknado poster looking one. He does everything. His credits were insanely long of just producing these sci-fi movies.
Well, at least these guys have work.
Oh yeah, they stay busy.
True.
Sci-fi is just pretty much constantly putting out stuff like this, so... And this was all shot within, a week.
If that.
In Utah, it was shot in Utah. I had to look it up.
Ah, yes, that's the perfect place to look like the Arctic.
Where else are you going to film ice sharks?
Oh, that's amazing. I did not see that it was filmed in Utah. This movie stars a bunch of people no one's ever gonna hear from again, I'm assuming.
Kieran Culkin.
Yeah.
I wish it had Kieran Culkin. That was a lie. I'm sorry, everyone.
I was like,
Don't
wait,
get your
was
hopes
he in this? Did he play the shark?
Yeah, he is the shark.
Edward D. Reuter as David, Jenna Parker as Tracy, Clarissa Thibio as Alex, and then about 5 other people that were just shark bait, essentially. Alright, so this movie opens with a dog sled scene that I was immediately not happy about, because I was like, well, these dogs are getting eaten. This is not going to start off great for me.
I wasn't even upset by it because it was so incredibly goofy.
I don't know. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I have a note that just says in capital letters, not the dogs.
Yeah, I've said it on here before because almost at least 80% of the movies we watch have some animal getting hurt, and I'm just like, God damn it, no.
I would have felt worse for them if there wasn't a line of 30 of them and they just kept going. It's guys, all of the dogs in front of you have been eaten. Please stop. And they're like, yeah, nah.
I have a theory that one of these sharks was actually the Thing, or one of the dogs, and it takes over the shark and then eventually just comes across like another dog, becomes that dog, and then ends up at the station with Kurt Russell. So that made it better for me.
That does actually make it better.
What if this is after the thing?
Ooh.
Is one of the dogs, and that shark saved humanity.
But wouldn't it be able to just like become the shark if the shark ate the dog?
I don't know. No one has ever eaten the thing, as far as I'm aware.
Michelle, you're the scientist. How does the thing work?
Oh my god, I'm not that kind of scientist.
So there's I guess what it's supposed to be, probably like like their portrayal of like an Eskimo, some sort of kind of indigenous hunter on it, like with his dog sled, that gets eaten by an ice shark as it gets like basically all of his dogs get pulled into the water and eaten, and then he gets dragged in, and it is real terrible looking, like even worse than Bait somehow.
Is that possible? That's possible?
Yes.
Oh my god.
The CGI...
These are staggeringly bad effects.
Yeah. Like, it... Again, like, every time we have anything with just terrible CGI, I need to point out that this movie came out like 30 years after Jurassic Park.
It came out 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I have a note here about how the shots of this supposed Arctic landscape in Utah, they actually, for about 2.5 minutes, look really good. And then the CGI shark happens, and it just all goes to shit.
Yeah, that opening shot where it's just like panning across like the water and then onto the kind of like ice is really beautiful.
It was nice. And I had really high hopes for like 2.5 minutes.
I also want to point out that, like, when this guy looks through his binoculars at the polar bear, it is 100% just polar bear footage stolen from, like, a National Geographic show.
Like Blue Planet 2.
It looks so bad. Like, it looks like he just shot it from his TV.
Now, maybe I'm wrong, but right after this, there's a shot, right after the shark eats the dogs, there's a shot where it's up close on two, what do you call them? I just blanked on what they're called. You ride on snow with them. Snowmobiles. Jesus Christ. The easiest thing in the world to remember. It's two snowmobiles right in front of the facility. And that was like all CG, right? Like the snowmobiles and then the facility, all of that was just CG, right?
I'm assuming, like, I think all of the wide shots of the facility, like, especially when you, like, see, like, a lot of background of, like, the, like, icebergs and shit, I think are probably CGI. I think the only ones that aren't are when they're, like, close-ups and you don't really see a lot of background.
Their research lab was, like, 99% CGI, which was a really poor choice. It looks horrible.
It's awesome.
I feel like it kept changing sizes throughout, also.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's like Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, yeah. I noted at one point, too, that, like, the director loves shooting these snowmobiles.
Yes, I heard that, too. And I think the word I used was, like, extraneous.
Yeah, like there are so many just lingering shots of these snowmobiles that, like, it's not even people necessarily riding them. It's just he's got to put in, like, the polar bear or whatever they're called logos. And
but did you feel at times he had these shots where we were traveling with the characters to, like, check their equipment or whatever, and I felt like I was traveling in real time for hours across the tundra. Like, I was making that journey with the characters. They were long shots.
That's pretty accurate for almost every movie we watch.
Oh,
in fairness, renting those snowmobiles probably ate up like half of the budget.
Oh,
so
I would almost bet you they got them for free as long as they got, like, a lot of footage of them.
That's why there's so many close-ups of the logo.
Yeah.
They're sitting on it drinking ice cold Pepsis.
No, Coca-Cola. They're polar bears.
Oh, damn it.
They stole it from the polar bear. Coke, why aren't you sponsoring
terrible.
us yet?
Yeah, I'd be terrible marketing Oh, Pepsi with the polar bear. Stupid.
So you cut to the Arctic research station and a bunch of extremely unlikable characters.
Recurring theme, Matt.
Almost all of them look like low rent.
Johnny Cage.
I was gonna say, what's the guy that plays Thor?
Yes,
Chris Hemsworth.
He was like a poor man's Chris Hemsworth.
There was knockoff Chris Hemsworth, and then I think it's his brother. Looks like cheap Matthew McConaughey. That's the vibe I was getting.
He's very tall.
Yeah.
He's like 6.5 feet tall. That guy was huge.
The entire time, I think that was, I actually wrote down names. I think that's Michael. Yeah. Every time, he started talking, I was just waiting for, a surfer bro California accent to come out of his mouth. And I was like, that would have been just top notch for them being out here in the Arctic and have this, surfer bro out there with them. Basically, they're worried about some sort of heat signature that's melting the ice faster than it should be. They do a system reboot because apparently that's going to fix science. That melted my brain.
Did you try unplugging it, plugging it back in?
I was like, I don't think that's how this stuff works, but alright. Sammy has to go out on a snowmobile to wherever his equipment is at, that apparently is at least 18 miles away based on the time of this movie, and figure out what's going on, why they're reading these temperatures crazy. I wrote down that I feel like none of them were necessarily dressed properly for what I assumed the temperatures in this area would be like.
Same.
Because they're just
true. That's true.
It's only 40 degrees in Texas, and it might be because I'm a huge baby who's used to the heat. But I'm wearing leggings under my pants, and I've got a leather jacket on, all zipped up, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna die out here today. This is the end.
I'm sorry. What did you say the temperature was?
40 degrees Fahrenheit.
I said I was a big baby who's used to the heat. It's 115 here on any given day. I'm used to that.
Jesus Christ.
I'm in Ohio.
It gets below 50, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the end times.
I'm in Ohio where it's 15 degrees. Dudes are still walking around with shorts and a hoodie on.
Do you mean Celsius?
No,
15
Fahrenheit.
Degrees? Okay, I don't understand that.
I don't either. But...
Yeah, I don't either, but I just use it.
I just know that I think it's below 30 is freezing in Fahrenheit.
Oh, okay.
32 is freezing.
Yeah, so 15 is, well below freezing, and it's constantly just dudes in Ohio still walking around with, flip-flops and shorts on.
Ohio is out there, man.
Respect.
It's a nightmare.
I don't know what y'all are doing.
Either do we. So, at the station, after Sammy goes off to figure out what's going on with their equipment, they get in a call from somebody about this hunter going missing from the beginning. This guy calling has a very terrible Canadian accent.
Oh my god, I loved it. It was so good. It was so good. And I was wondering the whole time, I was like, they're in Canada, aren't they? And then that guy's call came over the radio, and I was like, definitely in Canada.
I laughed very hard every time he talked.
I did too. It was really spectacularly bad.
So after they get this call, David and Tracy, who are the essentially main characters, the married couple in this, that you don't really put together that they're married until an hour into it when you get a shot of her wedding ring.
I still didn't know that they were married, so that's good.
Yep, same.
There's a shot, because they're they're being kind of a little overly affectionate with each other, I guess, if you don't realize it. And then there's a shot where she goes to hold his shoulder, and she's got a wedding ring on, and I was like, oh, I think they're supposed to be married.
That makes a lot of sense.
But they go out to look for this hunter. They come across, I guess, what is supposed to be seal remains. and collect samples as David finds shark teeth in it and a fingernail.
That blew my mind. Like, how do you find a human fingernail in all of that?
Yeah.
I just want to point out, though, that when in that first shot where the shark is eating, like, dog after dog after dog, eventually getting to the hunter, like, I've never seen a shark attack where the prey explodes before. So it would make sense in that case if you're finding just like random pieces of fingernail, because they each explode as they hit the water.
Well, that was the thing that was confusing, is like they were like, oh, these are definitely like they flat out say these aren't human remains. So I thought it was supposed to be like whatever the polar bear was eating it before. But then I was like, why is there shark teeth and a fingernail? Like this part does not make any sense to me.
And he says, don't worry, there's no scraps of clothing, as he then picks up a scrap of clothing. Because she's really, like, upset. And he's like, don't worry, there's no clothing. It's not our hunter. And then he literally picks up, like, the hunter's coat.
Like a sitcom, like, don't worry, there's no clothing, and picks it up and, like, tosses it off to the side.
So I was also confused.
At this point, I wrote down David knocked into water by CGI Gray Blob. He gets basically like a shark jumps out of the water and just smashes him into the water, but it barely resembles a shark. I think this is the first point I noted that this shark sucks at eating people. Mm-hmm. It's just like, I guess now that it makes sense that it's probably somewhat blind, but like it's just a lot of this movie is just sharks aimlessly swimming past people flailing in the water. I'm trying to like a lot of this movie I blacked out for. All right. So.
But then
I'm not gonna be able to help.
He's being dragged underwater though. Then for a really long time.
Yeah, he gets knocked in the water, but then Tracy pulls out a harpoon gun and shoots it.
Oh my god!
At David, somehow not hitting him, but landing just perfectly next to him so that he can grab it and have it like pulled in by the snowmobile, which is everybody in this movie apparently is extremely good shots. Because like later, David is just on point with every flare gun shot he uses.
I would have absolutely murdered that man with that harpoon gun on accident.
This movie would have gone up so much for me if she would have just accidentally shot him.
That would have been so dark. Like there would have been such good opportunity there for like the guilt and like the aftermath. That would have been a good movie.
Yeah. That would have been awesome. She just like accidentally wings his arm and then he gets attacked by a bunch of sharks, like sensing the blood in the water. So David gets dragged out of the water as like more sharks are starting to show up. As they get like apparently they're, I'm assuming, a good 30 or 40 feet away from like this like where the water's at, but they're still freaking out. It gets stuck, like their snowmobile gets stuck on something with this like wire that was attached to the harpoon, and they're like frantically trying to cut it loose, and I'm just like, I can't imagine these sharks are getting anywhere near them where they're at. They drive back to the station after cutting loose. David is basically going into hypothermia. I noted that they bring him into the station and start undressing him without closing the door.
Oh, nice. Classic.
After the dude made a point of closing that door at the very start of the film.
Yeah.
He even berates his brother about it at one point.
This is...
yeah. No, like there's like a line of dialogue about the importance of keeping...
Yeah, shutting that door.
Nice.
This is the first point, like, I think you see the, like, hole in the station so they can, like, do whatever with the water. Like, they could actually, like, drop equipment into it and stuff. And I was like, somebody is getting Deep Blue Sea in this movie. This is also when I wrote down, because they give a bunch of info after they're telling everybody else at the station that they saw these sharks, because they said they smelled ammonia. And this is when I was like, okay, I gotta ask Michelle if any of this smelly shark info is true.
Okay, so Greenland sharks specifically have high concentrations of urea in their body tissue. We make that, everybody makes that when you break down protein, and we excrete it in our urine. For whatever reason, sharks and rays do not. And Greenland sharks in particular have a high concentration of urea in their tissues to the point where if you eat them, it's basically toxic. And you get something called shark drunk, like you kind of lose your mind and get dizzy, and it's immediately toxic. So that, I don't know about the smell, but the high concentration of urea is true, and it was a really interesting sort of scientific line in the sand for them to make. I don't know why they had to include that detail out of all of the possible scientifically accurate details that you could include about sharks.
Especially because it never comes back. It's never like mentioned again where they're just like, oh, I can smell the shark coming. It's just like this weird info thrown out at the beginning that just really has no bearing on any of the plot.
Yeah. I just want to start a punk band called Shark Drunk.
There's a great book by that name. About the search for the Greenland shark. It's called Shark
Hell
Drunk.
Yeah.
And
I'll absolutely read that.
In Iceland, because they're really baller over there, they actually, I don't know, they do something where I think they bury the Greenland shark meat in the ground or something. They break down the urea so that they can eat it. And apparently this particular kind of shark is like disgusting. But they eat it. So that's Iceland.
I like everything I know about Iceland and the stuff they eat, just like Iceland is the one country I desperately want to visit, but I also, as a vegan, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to eat anything.
It's not the place for you.
Yeah. I just want to go and say hi to Bjork. That's pretty much all I care about. So you cut back to what I'm guessing is at least 8 hours later, with Sammy still driving to wherever his equipment is at. And he gets to his equipment, realizes there's nothing's wrong with it. As you see an overhead shot of the shark swimming under the ice, which I feel like if you can actually see the shark under the ice, it's probably not strong enough to hold the weight of this person. The shark busts out and attacks Sammy. Something happens where his leg gets pulled off and has the worst gore effect I think I've ever seen in a movie.
I had to watch it like 3 times to even understand what was happening, because his leg it goes from being a leg to just this gelatinous blob, and I still don't understand what happened.
It looks like his intestines fell out of his knee.
Yeah. It's like they jammed some cotton candy on his knee and just poured some fake blood over it.
There's something really wrong with the internal structure of his leg. It's there's something really wrong with him.
Honestly, it's probably for the best that he lost it, if that's what he has going on in there.
I think maybe he was the thing.
There it is. Solved it.
So his leg gets pulled off, and he starts to try and tourniquet his leg, and does not make it, and passes out and dies.
So there's a weird moment in here where he lays down, he finally gives up. And was it just me, or did it go from a nice high def shot to weird VHS quality as it was zooming out on his body?
Oh yeah,
laying on the ice.
It zooms out forever. It that shot in House of a Thousand Corpses with the dude with the gun to the guy's head, and it just zooms out. That's what it reminded me of, and I was like, just feels like they needed something to pad time to make this be an hour and a half.
No one needs to hit that goal that badly, especially ice sharks.
Or well, I guess they were probably shooting, because I'm guessing with commercials, if this aired on TV, this would have been a 2-hour movie. Having to sit through this with commercials.
Oh my god, no! I'd walk away 100 times.
I'm throwing my TV away before that happens.
So you cut back to the station, and I think this is Tracy is like calling Sammy over and over and over again, and David walks up to her and like comforts her for a second and then takes over, and I'm like, cool, I'm glad this dude had to just like take over for this to do the exact same thing she was doing. Eddie, one of the other characters, decides to go out to look for Sammy as sharks start to circle the station.
My favorite part.
Incredible.
Their fins are strong enough to just cut through whatever ice is holding this station up.
And their fins are apparently made up of 2 switchblades.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen a shark fin that looks like that before.
This whole scene was spectacular.
It was great.
Like, the idea, so like when Eddie gets outside and they realize these sharks are basically cutting a circle around the station that would just set them adrift at sea. Their plan is to attach like ropes to the station, 2 snowmobiles, and pull the station away. Which like this
Brilliant.
station has to be just like solid steel. I can't imagine a snowmobile is pulling this station anywhere. Not to mention it has to be like deeply embedded in whatever ice they're on.
Clearly the ice isn't that thick. I mean,
It's like everything that happens with the
it's
ice
thinner
in this
than
movie.
the length of the shark's fin.
They-
You know?
They speak to that, though, because something, climate change, something, the ice is thinning, it's hot. Like, I don't know, they explain it at some point. Yeah, they explain it away.
It, like, oh god, all of everything in this movie is insane.
That brings me to my favorite catch-all explanation in any shark movie, where, like, we're talking about these sharks aren't anything like actual Greenland sharks, right? Well, they're like, oh, well, these are just a highly evolved, like, spin-off of Greenland sharks. That must be it. And then they never explain anything else on it. Just like, oh, man, it's evolved. That's the explanation. Let's never talk about this ever again.
The like bare minimum they could have done is said they were like mutated or something, or like so.
Piranha 3D. They were trapped in a underwater cavern for millennia.
I think I'm going to say something that I never thought I'd say ever. I think the movie The Meg has more scientific accuracy than this one. Like, I really want to just go back and reevaluate my opinions about The Meg. I think I just have to put that out there.
I don't believe that anybody that makes a movie about a shark, other than possibly Jaws, understands what a shark actually is.
Well, have you looked up photos of an actual Greenland shark?
No.
You should do that.
I literally watched this movie, like, I finished it about an hour before we recorded.
You should look up photos of an actual Greenland shark, and they look really stupid and really dumb and really slow-moving. So what we saw in the movie is not that.
They don't look remotely threatening.
No, they're kind of cute in a really ugly kind of way.
Like you see a helpless old person.
Yeah, and he's blind and he has like parasites coming out of his eyes. You know.
And eating people and...
Yeah. Old people.
I am like endlessly fascinated by sharks and just about everything else in the ocean. But I also never want to actually be in the ocean or anywhere near it. So it's a real catch-22 for me.
It's a scary place.
It's like I think like one of the phrases I heard is just like getting into the ocean is basically just like entering the food chain. So like
I'm out.
That and like everything you ever see that's pulled out of just like the deep depths, I'm like, this is a literal monster. Like I want nothing to do with this.
So as horror buffs, like the Alien movie franchise, everything from the face huggers through to like Big Mama Alien, she's inspired by 3 different underwater creatures who actually exist. And they went on to inspire one of the most iconic horror movie monsters of all time. That's what the ocean is like.
You're discussing the sharks in this movie, right? As the most
Sorry?
iconic horror movie.
Oh, obviously. Obviously. The single most iconic horror movie monster appeared in Ice Sharks.
You go Frankenstein, Dracula, ice sharks, Alien.
Yeah.
I actually I don't think I knew that the xenomorph was based off of. I guess that makes a lot of sense though.
Yeah, the face huggers, or is that what they're called? The face huggers? Yeah, horseshoe crabs, and then the big mama alien from Aliens is some kind of plankton that makes an exoskeleton out of the bodies of her prey. And there's a third one that inspired that series of movies. Third something. I can't remember.
I could definitely see H.R. Giger specifically only being influenced by weird sea creatures and sex.
Yeah.
Pretty much all his stuff would be, or pretty much is.
And the third one is moray eels with their pharyngeal jaws.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I guess my point is, if I'm trying to make a point, there are so many actually terrifying things in the ocean. I don't know how they made such a subpar shark.
I mean,
a lot to work with.
Yeah.
When you look
There's a lot of terrifying stuff down there.
All of these movies, all of the shark movies that pretty much I've ever watched, when you look at a shark and then you just look at all of these crazy what's the one fish that has the thing that dangles in front of its head that
anglerfish.
Yeah, you look at that and I'm this thing is much more terrifying than this giant 18-foot shark to me.
Mm-hmm.
How come no one's made a horror movie about anglerfish then? That would be...
I bet it's out there.
It's definitely on Amazon Prime in the US if it is.
Yes, 1,000%.
But not in Canada.
Canada only gets the movies that people are going to confuse with an ice hockey movie.
That's the most disappointment a Canadian can ever feel, is putting on this movie expecting anything hockey related, and then they get that, whatever it is.
Somebody should make a movie that's just Ghost Sharks 3 should just be the Ghost Sharks coming at a hockey arena.
I would watch the shit out of that.
I would too. So Eddie dies because he gets eaten by a shark trying to fucking pull this stupid station away in a snowmobile, in the worst plan in the history of movies. So their next plan to get these sharks away from them, as their station is essentially just going to float away to sea, is to strap what are those things they strap to the propane tanks?
Jetpacks.
I was literally about to be
I wish they had jetpacks. That was their plan.
They attach something to these propane tanks that makes them explode underwater.
Oh, like flares, or
it almost looked like it was like a blowtorch kind of thing, but
I think that I blacked out because I
was not paying attention during that part.
I really don't remember this.
I think I was texting Kit and I was I can't believe we were partially through I was partially through the movie, and I was well, what do you want to watch next week or whatever? And I was why don't we just do next week? We'll just do the episode of King of the Hill where the Bobby gets real into Christian rock. And so this scene happened, and I was Hank Hill would be real pissed about the way they're treating these propane tanks.
That's fair.
It's an understandable reason to not pay attention, I think.
Yeah. I'm in 6 seasons deep into King of the Hill, and that's pretty much all I want to watch right now, which just made this movie even worse. So they drop these propane tanks into the water, or at least one of them, and it blows up and scares the sharks away for about 3 minutes. But the aftershock damages the radio of the station and all of the rest of the ice holding them in place, and they just float out to sea. Because these scientists are real terrible with plans.
And at this point, the sharks have also successfully cut through the ice in a perfect circle. So, right, they're adrift.
Yeah, I think they had cut enough around that the aftershock from that propane tank broke the rest of it, and that's what knocked them loose, I think. Regardless, they are now floating to sea.
Okay.
They decide to use this motorized camera to look for a place to anchor their station, and they come across Sammy's leg underwater.
Yep.
Which made me laugh.
Also, I will say that like the underwater shots looked pretty good. I think that they actually went and did some scuba diving for this movie.
So, this may be a real dumb question that I probably should know. So, would like all of the shots underwater where you see all of like the seaweed and kind of all that stuff, like later when like Michael's just swimming around, would that all look like that in the Arctic?
No,
That's
God,
what,
no.
like, okay, I was like, I can't imagine this stuff like would live in that kind of
No, that's definitely
thrives.
That's like off the coast of California or like British Columbia. That's like a Pacific kelp forest.
That was
So
definitely filmed in Utah.
Listen, I don't know American geography, so I'm going to trust you on that one. They have kelp forests, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I have a note about that too. It looks like they're filming right off the coast of California. It's definitely not the high Arctic.
I was just like, I can't imagine this stuff actually would survive in that kind of temperature, but I also like am real dumb when it comes to this stuff, so I'm not sure. A shark basically eats the camera, I'm guessing, because the camera goes out and gets like taken away. And as this is happening, a shark jumps out of their hole in their station and grabs this like lady, and I just wrote "Deep Blue Sea, bitch" real big in my notes. And like I immediately after I've like that scene happened, I desperately was trying to find on Spotify the LL Cool J song from Deep Blue Sea, and I couldn't find it. It bummed me out.
Oh, that's
So
a
sad.
great movie.
Oh, Deep Blue Sea is so good.
Classic.
That's like one of the best scenes when like the shark just fucking aimlessly jumps out and eats Samuel L. Jackson.
How hasn't that man died on screen?
I don't know. Everything I've seen with Samuel L. Jackson, I don't think he dies a lot.
Oh.
But to be fair, I'd say like 80% of the stuff I've seen is him as Nick Fury at this point. So, does he die in Pulp Fiction?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I haven't seen Pulp Fiction in a long time though. But
Maybe he doesn't die in that many. He's definitely lived many lives, though.
Samuel L. Jackson's too much of a badass to die in movies.
He's in so many movies, like it's impossible to keep track.
Yeah. So the station at this point has started to sink into the water, as most things do when they sink. Not really sure why I phrased it that way, but
That's really good science.
the sharks have now started to like come into the station through like their hole in the bottom of it, and are spending a lot of time swimming around this like 5 to 10 foot room, not eating the two people in it.
Yeah. Do we know why the sharks are so determined to annihilate these people?
They're hungry. They were frozen in the water or frozen in ice for so long, and now they got.
What? They ate 25 dogs at the start of the film. What?
That was just one of them. The other like 10 need to eat too, Kit.
Later in the movie, when they start throwing flares in their eyes, I understand why they're angry then.
Then it becomes revenge.
Yeah, and I was on their side, but no, I don't know why they feel the need to eat all of these people at this point.
I'm assuming they saw Jaws 4 and got very angry about how bad it is, and we're like, we gotta eat people for this Travis
Get up our
movie.
game.
The Michael and I don't know who this other lady is that's in this down. I think this was Alex. Start to shoot these sharks with tranquilizers, and then they decide to bait 3D the sharks and electrocute them by, I don't know, like Alex is standing on basically cases of something, and then Michael gets on top of something else, and then they turn their power on and electrocute these sharks.
What? I think I was abducted during this movie because I literally.
I don't remember that at all. Maybe I fell asleep.
The only reason I remember is I was like, this is exactly what they did to kill the shark and bait 3D.
I feel like you're making this up.
I am.
You're testing.
I
watched it.
I actually watched Bait 3D again instead.
So then he puts on the shopping cart suit.
Oh, the shopping cart suit should have been in this movie. The station still sinking. As they kind of realize it's like inevitable, they're going underwater. Alex turns off their radio and turns it into like a transmitter, and like so that like whoever they call that is supposed to be coming to help them can find them. As their station completely sinks, I was very confused as to why everything underwater wasn't completely pitch black. Because it seems like as far as they went underwater, I feel like it would be very dark.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
There's more faulty science in this dumb movie.
I, for one, am shocked.
Sorry?
Said I, for one, am shocked that the science would be faulty in ice sharks.
This is where they really failed us in terms of scientific accuracy. This is unforgivable.
You know how awesome it would have been if they would have just went pitch black and all they had was like flashlights for the next 40 minutes of this?
Yes, because what's that? The one where they go in the cave, it's entirely by flashlight.
Oh,
and it's so scary.
Yeah.
Yes, that would have been a much better movie. So now we have at least 5 ways in which this movie could have been a better movie.
As somebody that has seen a handful of these sci-fi movies, and Kit, who has seen probably all of them at this point, I feel like the way they do these is they're just like, where's the place we could put this? The Arctic. What's something we could have? I don't know. Dump shark. Okay, done. And then they just like hire people and film it like a week later. I don't think there's even a script.
How else do you think Jersey Shore Shark Attack came about?
What? That's a real thing?
Oh, it is real, and it's fantastic.
I don't condone shark attacks, but if anybody deserves to be eaten by a shark, it's people on the Jersey Shore.
It also has a Joey Fatone in it from NSYNC.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that's worth watching alone.
It's A+.
The sci-fi movies are all pretty fucking spectacular, and just like coming up with whatever their ideas are alone has to be like the most fun somebody could have in a writer's room. But then like I imagine that like they come up with an idea and they literally have like 2 days to write it, and then they have like 3 days to cast, and then they just have like a week to shoot it, and then it's on TV.
You know what? Oh, go ahead.
I was to say it shows that the ideas are better than the execution.
Yeah, because every title I'm like, that sounds amazing, and then I watch it and I'm just like, this is real bad.
Do you think that there's somebody in that writer's room who's trying really hard to like represent sharks in like a fair way? Like you get that throwaway line about the urea or whatever. There's somebody who's trying really hard to be accurate and to paint a fair picture, and they just get ramrodded every time, and they're so frustrated.
They're like, all right, Dave, calm down. We get it. We'll throw you one line in here.
That would be me in that writer's room.
I want to know who that person was for Toxic Shark.
Wait, Toxic Shark?
Yes.
What is Toxic Shark?
Exactly what it sounds like. I can't remember why it is that the shark is toxic, but he's radioactive and just swimming around and ruining the ocean and poisoning people.
Oh my god.
That's awesome. Like, if you, like, that guy I mentioned before, that was, like, the co-producer of this, Paul Bales, like, his producing credits just read like every crazy idea somebody probably would come up with a movie on acid. Because it's just, like, every single one of them is every movie that's just, like, any creature combined. But then he has that, like, Nazis at the center of the earth movie.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, just all of that shit. And I just, like, I kind of want to just pivot this podcast to just watching everything he's produced at this point.
Do you think his parents are really proud of him?
I mean, I bet he probably makes a pretty decent amount of money making these stupid movies because he's got 9,000 of them that come out a year, so...
Mm.
We're already on 20-headed shark attack.
What? I only saw up to 6 today. 6-headed.
Yeah, I think they're like
I think they're up to 7.
Yeah, I believe there's a 7 at this point now.
Okay.
At that point, the shark is just heads.
It's just a ball. It's a ball of heads.
Oh my god.
So the station has now, like, on the ocean floor, which I guess they said was like 90 feet.
Yep.
And the sharks, who apparently are blind, are just like banging into the station left and right. Which makes more sense if you think about it as like they're being blind, but I guarantee you the way... Well,
it doesn't make sense because sharks have a sixth sense called electroreception.
Well,
so even if they were blind, they would not be that stupid. I just have to speak up here.
I'm
sharks.
going based on the science of this movie because at first I was just like, these sharks are being like real vindictive here. Like they're just like ramming the shit out of this station. But I was like, oh, well, if they're blind, I guess that's the way they're looking at it in the movie is like, I'm guessing somebody in there was just like, these sharks are blind. There's like, we got two sort of facts in here. We're good.
Two almost facts.
I should also state that this is the point that I wrote down. I can't believe there's 40 minutes left of this movie.
That's where we are? There's still 40 minutes left?
Like,
Jesus.
There is 40 minutes after this station sinks. Like, this
movie was so much longer than The Godfather.
This movie is definitely longer than, like, every Marvel movie as well.
I think I stopped taking notes, and that's why I thought we were further along. I think I just gave up.
I think around this point, like, I have a note somewhere coming up that I was just like, I blacked out. I don't know what's happening. There is a quote that I wrote down. I think the station is like losing power. Okay. So the station's losing power, and they're coming up with like plans, and they're just like as they hit the ground, they're like worried that it's gonna tip over or whatever. And one of the characters goes, "You think it's gonna hold?" And someone else goes, "I bet my life on it." And then the character goes, "Yeah, we all are."
God damn it.
That was one of the two quotes I wrote down for this movie. There's a pretty fucking excellent quote coming up. The station has lost power, and they've figured out that they have about 1 day's worth of oxygen left, to which Alex starts like freaking out and screaming about how no one has a plan.
Also, that's really helpful when you're running out of oxygen.
I was like, there's no way this is a good idea when you have a day's worth of oxygen and you're just ranting now. This is around the time that, like, I don't know what's going on because I think I just blacked out and I was like, Michael is leaving to do something and I have no idea what their plan was. And, like, Michael just, for some reason, is just constantly going back out into the water to like scuba dive and do shit.
The worst idea.
Yeah.
But the best looking part of the movie.
I would say besides that opening shot, this is definitely like the scuba diving stuff is probably the best and probably most costly shots of the movie. So Michael is now like out in the ocean. Alex made him take like some weird piece of metal to like stab sharks with if they came near him.
Foolproof plan.
Yeah, which they just looked like giant tongs to me because he was like squeezing them shut, and I was like, "This is weird. I don't know what's happening."
They get close to you, poke them real good with this.
Yeah. Michael gets to, so there's like a good 5 minutes of Michael swimming around, which, from what I could tell, was to just get to the bottom of the station and then back in through that hole at the bottom, correct?
What? He was clearing an entrance, maybe. Or exit. I don't know.
The way they made it look is like he was swimming like a mile away to like fix something, but then like he's just like, when he gets to wherever he's going, he's back under the station where like their hole was to like monitor stuff when they're on the ice. And it was very confusing to me. All I could imagine is they shot a bunch of stuff underwater, and they're like, we're using all of it.
Yeah.
I was dead at this point, so I don't know what happened.
you're right. He like swims out, like he swims like out away from their station. He's out. He's far away, and then you're right. Then suddenly he was down.
Yeah,
that doesn't make.
It made no sense to me.
I don't know.
You get now a giant like cargo ship shows up that is a giant CGI cargo ship that has maybe the worst actors I've ever seen in my life on it. The captain of this ship is just delivering all of his lines in like a yelling monotone voice, and it's driving me crazy. And this is me saying these are the worst actors is coming from somebody that sat through Nudist Colony of the Dead.
Judge Reinhold was fantastic.
Yeah, but he's the only
He's a top-notch actor.
Him and Ranger Big Butts are the only good parts of that movie. The ship that showed up to save them, their plan is they have to like navigate past a bunch of icebergs to get to wherever the station has sank. They're going to drop a cable from a helicopter into the water. Michael is now back in the water, swimming around to attach this cable to like what looked like the flimsiest bar on the station. And they're going to like raise the station out of the water. As they're getting like raised up, a shark comes by and like bangs into the cable, like knocking the station loose, and then a shark or maybe two just like rips Michael apart.
Oh yeah. No, but so he's in the water, and then one of them comes from one direction and takes the top half of his body, and then simultaneously the other guy comes from the other direction and takes the bottom half of his body, and then he explodes.
Like that's what I assumed happened, and I think I was like writing down what was like going on with the helicopter, and I just looked up and there was just like Michael just like ripped in half. So
this is like right after he says that he wanted to stay down close on the thing because he didn't want to deal with the sharks, right?
Yeah, he
immediately after he was like, "No, I'll just hang out right here because I don't want to deal with the sharks." Then
his plan was that like instead of swimming back down and trying to swim like down and then back up into like the bottom of the station, if he just stayed on top of it, it would have just raised him out of the water. But
lesson learned.
Can we talk about the helicopter?
Absolutely, we can talk about the helicopter.
That looked like it had like no body to it at all.
What is that a real kind of helicopter? Like it looked like a Lego. Like it was just.
Yeah. So they'll use those for like big cargo shipments.
Okay.
So it'll have that like wrench, like that cable that it drops down. It'll pick up the big cargo crates, and it sits kind of in the center where it looks like there's a big cutout.
Oh, I see what you're saying. But the shot itself looked like somebody bought a drone from Radio Shack, and then they just filmed it to scale. Like it's really, really bad.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Like, I don't even understand why they couldn't have just stolen a shot of like a helicopter and like a big cargo ship. I don't know why they had to CGI it, but they look absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I just have a note that says, "What the fuck kind of helicopter is that?" I was clearly very upset about the helicopter.
It definitely looks real weird, but like, yeah, I've seen them before. I just didn't realize they were like for cargo ships. But this helicopter has now like it's been basically like knocked into the water, and like the station is sinking again. And as it sinks, the helicopter parts are just like smashing into the station. They come up with a plan that there's I can't think of what the names of these things were, but the ship is dropping down these packages that basically attaches to the station that like inflates these balloons that will like raise them up because I think they said that like the weight of the ship wasn't necessarily a thing. It was like the buoyancy has to like outweigh it or something.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. Like whatever those things were, they drop down that they attach to the station that eventually like raises them out of the water. they throw out some line about how, like, oh, it doesn't matter that the station weighs so much, it's just got to like, the buoyancy of these balloons has to outweigh the state, like, how much the station weighs, or some nonsense. But, Alex and David are going to go outside and, like, go swim to get these things the ship throws down for them. And right before they do, Tracy goes, "You know I love you, right?" And David goes, "Pretty much, yeah."
It was so romantic.
Easily the most romantic thing of all time.
It's like he was trying to be Han Solo, but he failed so hard.
I had to pause.
Miss with the landing.
I was laughing so hard I had to pause it because I was just like, I'm gonna miss some vital details if I don't. It was maybe one of the funniest lines I think I've heard in a movie.
That's my go. Oh God!
Unintentionally funny.
No, that's my new go-to. Anytime anybody tells me they love me, I'm going to be like, if they tell me, you know I love you.
Yeah.
To which I say, pretty much, yeah.
So good. So now David and Alex are out in the water. David took a flare gun with him. Alex took, like, a blowtorch of some sort. And David is just an absolutely incredible shot with this flare gun because he manages to shoot every shark right in the eye.
Ren said they're dead, parasite-filled eyes.
Mm-hmm. It's really not fair because they can't see it coming.
This whole thing was only there for the shot, like, that's coming up of the shark swimming at the station with, like, the flare in its eye. Mm-hmm. Alex just, like, gets eaten or something. I don't really remember how or why. She just gets eaten out in this water. A shark with a flare just, like, jammed in its face comes swimming at the station because Tracy's got one of the windows, like, unblocked and is, like, watching what's going on, and it just smashes through the window. As the station is now getting, like, raised out of the water, David is on top of the station. Tracy is still inside, being attacked by this shark, hiding behind a ladder that she somehow manages to break and then beat this shark with the ladder. Mm-hmm. Everyone on the shark, as the station is being, like, brought onto the ship, says shark about 500 times.
No, these are what they go, is that a shark? I think it's a shark. It's a shark.
Losing my mind at all of this voiceover work of, like, these people that have, like, aren't even on camera, just, like, saying shark a million times. As Tracy's beating this shark with the ladder, it falls onto the deck of the ship. It is, like, flailing around.
Wait, you failed to mention that this whole time the shark's back end is, like, sticking out of a window.
Yeah.
And and everyone's really chill about it. Like,
what an incredible visual that was. Just the whole ass end of the shark is hanging out on the outside of this window.
But the sailors are so nonchalant about it. They're like, oh yeah, it's a shark.
It's also like the shark lands on the ship deck, and instead, like, it just kind of, like, lays there for, like, a solid 5 minutes, because it's long enough for Tracy and David to come out and, like, sit down and get blankets wrapped around them, and then it starts flailing around. Like, it's,
yeah.
Like, but as it starts flailing around,
this is the best scene in the movie, 100%, far and away.
It's flailing around on the deck of the ship, knocking people fucking everywhere. David, like, jumps over it and shoots some sort of, like, tank that explodes.
Slow-mo dives over it. Not just any leap, like he's trying to get the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl, like, oh, he's got stretch.
Yeah, he jumps over the shark and shoots, like, some sort of, like, gas-filled tank, which explodes and knocks the shark back into the water, leaving us room for ice sharks too.
Oh, but it's like in, like, the most incredible slow motion, and then, like, the shark's eyes are, like, rolling back in its head, and its body is turning end over end like a tumbleweed. It's beautiful.
You can just, like, sense that shark saying, like, I'm gonna get you next time.
He's, like, raising his little shark fist.
Yeah, why
There's no way that they don't do a sequel to this. There's just I can't imagine Sci-Fi isn't gonna do a sequel.
I'm surprised they haven't already.
I'm surprised we're not on 4 of them by now. It's been 2 years. But after the shark's knocked in the water, David and Tracy are hugging, and she just goes, "Idiot," and he goes, "Pretty much, yeah." And credits.
Good callback to 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. Oh, this movie was so good. Yeah, so that was this real dumb shark movie. Next week, we are going to watch Raptor, which I believe is our first returning to a director, because I don't know if you realize this, but this is Jim Wynorski.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yes.
That explains why it was so good from the 30 minutes I saw.
So Jim Wynorski, the director of Chopping Mall, we're returning. I'm technically, Jack Frost 1 and 2, but we did those back to back. I don't really count that as a returning 2.
Jim Wynorski's going to be on here a lot, I think.
Yeah. I made the mistake of looking at his Facebook once, and it is real bad.
I assume.
It's him, just angrily posting about people not liking his movies, and then just pictures of, barely clothed, ladies.
How could anyone dislike the 2001 straight-to-DVD action classic Raptor?
Or
starring Corbin Burnson and Eric Roberts.
Shark and Saw Women's Prison Massacre and the Bear Wench movies and all 150 of his terrible movies. But Raptor will be next week. That's on Amazon Prime in the US. So, Michelle has a podcast called Are You Afraid of the Bark? That I love. It has also the best podcast title of all time.
Aw, thank you.
When we first started doing this, I think you were one of the first handful of, or probably the first person outside of some of our friends that followed us on Twitter, and I saw the name and I was like, done. Great. I was like, I'm listening to all of this. But
that came to me in that state between being asleep and being awake, and I think I sat straight up in bed and I turned to my partner, and I don't think he even knew I was planning on starting a podcast, but I woke him up and I just said, "Are you afraid of the bark?" and then I went back to sleep, like he would understand what the fuck that meant.
Oh, that's perfect. But yeah, it's really good. I like it a lot. It, you cover supernatural animal stories, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah. I've branched out a little bit. I think when I started, I think I wanted to do animal ghost stories, but it turns out that there aren't as many of those as I thought. So now it's animal myths and legends and supernatural. I just did 2 episodes on urban legends which feature cats and dogs, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the dog one is really good. I'm gonna listen to the cat one tomorrow at work. Yeah, I've had 1 episode that legit made me weep, the story of the cat at the school.
I know.
It's so good.
Room 8. Yeah, that cat.
And then on the other end, the dog lick story, which is absolutely terrifying.
That one is truly horrific. Yeah, that's dogs. There's some great urban legends featuring dogs. The cats really get the short end of the stick, I think.
I feel like cats are probably more of myth type stuff. You'll probably find more of because of.
And they're the villains.
Yeah.
The dogs are the heroes of their urban legends. They're so often stepping in and saving their owners and putting themselves in harm's way. And then all the stories I found about cats really painted them as the villain. They're stealing baby's breath. And in one story, I think they nibble off a woman's frostbitten toes in her sleep. They're truly the villains. Oh yeah, no, they are not painted in a nice light.
I feel like if you're at home and you're just getting attacked, a cat's probably just sitting there just what? while dog is at least probably trying to help.
Well, I don't know if you've seen these videos where people pretend to have a heart attack or to faint in front of their animals, and when you do it in front of a dog, they're going to be genuinely concerned. Like they're gonna try to turn you over, they're gonna lick your face, they're gonna try to wake you up. Sometimes they even go for help, and then literally people do the same thing with their cats, and their cats just step over what the cat assumes is their dead body, and just sometimes just sits on top of them because they want to be the highest thing in the room. So that's cats versus dogs.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, do you want to throw out like where they can find your podcast and where to follow and all that stuff?
Yeah, of course. So it's Are You Afraid of the Bark? I'm hosted by Buzzsprout, so you can find all of my episodes through that podcast hosting site or through any of the more conventional ways that you get your podcasts, through iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. If you want to reach out to me on social media, the best way to do that is probably over Twitter. It's just @AfraidOfTheBark. You can also find me on Facebook under the podcast name Are You Afraid of the Bark, and on Instagram @AfraidOfTheBark Podcast. And you guys have been such wonderful supporters of the podcast. I think we started producing episodes, I think we're just a few weeks off. Like, I think I'm maybe one episode ahead. But from the very beginning, you guys have been such incredible supporters, just liking and retweeting and sharing everything I put out on social media and giving me amazing shout outs. So I'm super appreciative. And this is one of my favorite podcasts, and I talk about it all the time as I'm able to.
So what was it like purposely going into just knowing you're watching a garbage movie as opposed to going into a movie and being like, oh, this might be good?
You know what? I have a lot of love for like especially bad horror movies. I think that out of all the bad movies, the bad horror movies are the best and the funniest and the least like sensical. So I had a great time apart from that 45-minute period where I apparently blacked out because there were times where you were talking about the movie and it was like I was hearing it for the first time. So I'm genuinely worried about what happened to me.
I legitimately had to start because the first handful of movies we did, I was writing my notes as just like things that popped into my brain, and then we would go to talk about it. I'm like, I don't remember any of this. I don't know what this note means. So I had to start like littering with my notes with like, so and so goes running to this house. This happens now, just to kind of keep track, because a lot of the time, at least like half of the movies we watch, I'm just like, I don't remember any of this. I think I blocked everything out as soon as the movie ended.
Do you think our brains are like trying to preserve themselves, like it's self-preservation, where your brain is like you're actively losing brain cells? You best shut off for like an hour.
I look forward to like 100 episodes from now when Kit and I are just like, to be fair, I think Kit would already be at that point if that were true.
I've abused my brain so much throughout my youth. It's fine now.
Like, every movie I come across, I'm like, this movie looks absolutely terrible. Kit's like, yeah, I've seen it.
I have to admire that. You guys are true connoisseurs. You know what? You're doing the Lord's work because you're putting yourself in that position so the rest of us don't have to. And it's the Lord's work.
My favorite thing is, like, anytime somebody, like, tweets at us, they're just like, why'd you make me watch this movie? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure most of the movies I'm flat out like, don't watch this movie. It's
don't
terrible.
Do this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you made a podcast discussing these movies so that we don't have to watch them. Like, it's a public service.
There's maybe like 5 we've done out of our 9. I think this is episode 19 that I'm like, yeah, watch this. The rest
hardly
of
recommend.
This is like, I would say like Chopping Mall, Jason X, all that stuff. I'm like, this is all great. What was that?
Santa Sleigh.
Yes. Santa Sleigh is the best movie of all time.
Christmas or not.
And I guess like Demons as well, but The Evil Within is maybe the worst movie I think I've ever watched.
I'm so
the most insane movie I've ever watched.
I'm so shocked because it had some big names.
That's what happens when you have like the son of an oil tycoon that could just throw money at everything for 15 years.
And cocaine. Throwing a lot of cocaine.
All right, yeah. Listen to Are You Afraid of the Bark? It is highly recommended for me. I don't think Kit actually knows what a podcast is, so
I show up here every week so I can make fun of stuff.
I don't tell Kit we actually post these. You can follow us on Twitter at I Hope You Suffer, Facebook at I Hope You Suffer Pod, Instagram at I Hope You Suffer Podcast. You could email us at ihopeyousufferpodcast@gmail.com. That's all I got. Anybody else got anything?
Mm-mm.
All right.
No. Thank you for having me.
Yes,
it's been a real... You know what? This is a dream come true. Thank you for having me on this podcast.
Thank you for being on. We will definitely have you on again when we get to...
House sharks.
Something, yes. Anything else we could come across that is real dumb and includes, like, anything underwater. You're
awesome.
Absolutely invited.
Sweet.
All right. I hope you suffer, but why?
But why?